another in Allen Township that we have for sale. Any one of these properties, the sales, that gives us the ability, number one, to pay the taxes on that house, but number two, to give us the ability to pay, to go forward with our payment plan. And we've had some extensive discussions with the county auditor and county treasurer about going on a payment plan to pay this. The issue always is, do you have the ability to follow through on the payment plan? And that's our challenge right now. One of the things that we are doing within the next few weeks is meeting with Huntington Bank to see what we could do with refinancing in some fashion. We have 61 mortgages at Huntington Bank that we're paying nearly $7,000 a month on. We have very high interest rates, but we are no different than anybody else that has gone through this housing crisis. When the value of the properties go down precipitously, and your mortgage is up over that and you're underwater, it's difficult to go to the bank and say we want to refinance this, because like everybody else, we were in that same situation. We are starting to get our head above water on those properties. That number one. Two, we have in the past we've attempted to refinance. When these things were originally financed through Trumbull Savings, and I said passed through to Huntington, they were in the just the commercial loan departments, or residential loan department, whatever it is. It wasn't in the Huntington Bank's commercial or community development department. We have since, and so that when we went to refinance, the cost of refinancing 61 separate mortgages was prohibitive. It just wasn't, you had to appraise everyone, had closing costs for everyone, and it just wasn't something we could do, given the values of the houses. Now, we have moved and have contacted the community development department at Huntington Bank, and they're willing to work with us. And so we will be meeting with them shortly to see what they can do. The ideal situation for us, in terms of, from that perspective, that will then increase our cash flow, is to have a blanket mortgage for all of our properties. And now, from a blanket standpoint, the values of the properties are above what we owe on the properties, and so that makes sense. And that gives us some flexibility. So if somebody comes and says, I want to buy, it just happened last week, someone came and said, I want to buy this piece of property. It was probably worth about $12,000. We owed 15 on it. My answer was, I can't sell that property if I owe 15 and he's going to give me 12. And so with the blanket mortgage, I have much more flexibility in moving properties around and being able to sell those properties and move those. And that does a number of things. It's just a vacant property. We need to get rid of our vacant properties. We're keeping insurance up on the vacant properties. We're cutting grass on the vacant properties. We're doing what we can do with the limited resources that we have. So that will give us the ability, I think, to further enhance our cash flow to be able to pay these things down. All of our properties that we have now that are available to be rented, and there's 40 of them on the Sunshine rental side, are rented. We don't have a house available that we have that is able to be rented. It's not rented. So we can rent houses if we have them available. We just, I think it was last year, we went back to the city, in terms of additional home funds. We got a very small amount. I think we got $50,000 because they could give us home money if it's past 15 years or past our affordability period on these properties. And they gave us $50,000. We put 5 more houses online, and they're all rented. So if there's a house that hasn't been drastically vandalized, and we can put it back online, we get it back online, and we can rent it. But the unfortunate thing is that we have a number of properties that have been stripped totally. And I've quoted, and that some houses, I just think that it just isn't a good use of money to go back in and rehab some of these houses, and I think they need to come down. Simple as that. Some of them have come down. I think we have a few more that need to come down, just because it doesn't make good economic sense in the neighborhood that they're in. Don't forget these. Again, I'm talking about, we started in '93. That's almost 20 years ago. Given what's happened in the last 20 years in some of the neighborhoods, would you put more money? I don't think any of you would put money back in some of these properties that we purchased. And I will say, Sunshine, in their haste back in the early days to acquire these properties with this goal of 100, frankly, some of the properties, probably shouldn't, in retrospect, have been purchased. They're properties that even if we rehab them, would be extremely difficult to rent, given their structure and format. So That's kind of where we are on this. Like I say, we are moving forward. We are meeting with the auditor and treasurer and working out a plan to pay those taxes. Our goal, our goal simply is to pay that. We don't want to walk away from anything. I mean, in the last few years, the city has torn down about 400 houses, and I guarantee you taxes were owed on all those houses, and none of that is getting paid back to the community. Our goal is to go into a payment plan as we fix our problems and fix our tax flow, to go back in and pay these taxes that are due. Again, with the land contracts also as a priority. One of the things I failed to mention, we just jump back to the tax credit houses, for example.
No, go ahead.
Let me finish this, because I think this is important. I think it's important. I mean, I think the tax credit program was generally misunderstood when it was started. Because I think, it was couched as a home ownership program, and yet the individuals that lease these houses could not buy these for 15 years. Well, that was tax law. That was tax and housing law that said that because of the investors that invested in these projects, they were getting their tax credit, you could not sell these houses for 15 years. Well, our first project, Warren First, has come up to 15 years. So now, we are in the process of converting that limited partnership into a different entity where we will be able to, hopefully within a few months, be able to offer those houses for sale to potential homeowners. And it has always been our goal to do that. We just were restricted. We were not able to do that until now. We're making that conversion, and we will be able to do that. And the program, when it started with that 15-year thing, it was meant to say to somebody, if you buy a house, say back in '96 when this thing started, you buy a house, 15 years later, if you had a 30-year mortgage, you would be roughly in the same position you would be if you had a 15-year mortgage and paid on it for 15 years at that 15th year. So the prices of these houses are going to be very attractive, and it's going to be advantageous financially for the individuals to purchase these houses. Now, obviously, we don't have very many people that have stayed 15 years in those houses. I think we have 6 people in the first project that are still original tenants. They will get the best deals on these houses. And then these houses will be available first to the current tenants that are in there, and then if there's not a tenant in the house, it will be available to anyone to purchase the properties. We have the opportunity then to really create home ownership, which is always the center of the program, as I understand it.
Michael, did you have something you want to say?
No, just 2 quick things. And we keep saying city, city, city. I understand, I want council to understand that there's not a dime of city money in any of these projects. This is money that comes to the consortium of the city and county. It's a separate entity that's funded by HUD. The other thing that Tony said is that HUD said you should. No, HUD says you must give 15% of that money to nonprofit housing development organizations. At the time, Sunshine was the only one that was set up that way. So 2 things to keep in mind. Every time that Tony says city, it's not city, it's actually the consortium who oversees this. The city just acts as the lead agency. Somebody's got to do the paperwork, and it falls on us. And the other thing is that remember that the HUD mandated we do what we did. I do want to say too, just so that you know what we've been doing, the city and the county have been meeting with Tony since last fall. And during those meetings, we've been looking at plans and ways to try to make sure that all these bills are eventually paid. As Tony said, that we also met along with Tony with the county auditor and the county treasurer. Let them know what the problems were, let them know that Sunshine was trying its best to fulfill all of its obligations, as opposed to a lot of homeowners in the city wanting to tend to walk away from them. And we are now developing a plan whereby we can pay back, or have Sunshine pay back a lot of these back taxes. And that is about the only thing that they owe. As Tony said, they're keeping up on their mortgages. We're working with Huntington Bank right now to try to get a blanket mortgage and reduce the rates to increase the cash flow to Sunshine. And also trying to get some of these properties that are tax exempt or reappraised so the tax value is actually lower. There's not as much taxes being charged for properties. Again, that having been said, there are still a number of these properties that are just not worth anything anymore. They need to go. HUD will give us the money to buy these properties, HUD will give us the money to rehab these properties, but HUD will not give us the money to tear down the properties. If we do ask HUD for permission to tear down a property, we must replace it. So for every property I tear down using home money, I have to replace that property. Now, there's a very good reason for that. HUD's feeling is you don't want to be able to use home money as a demolition project to move low-income people out of your city. They want to make sure that you always have enough affordable income or affordable housing for low-income people. So if you tear one down, you have to add another, which is a very good policy, I think, by HUD. But because of that, we're stuck with not being able to use the same money that we give them to buy these houses. Can't give them that same money to tear them down. It was so we were torn a lot of these down a long time ago. These were purchased in rarely bad parts of town. The philosophy then was, hey, let's take these houses that nobody else wants and try to rehab them and put low-income people in them. Well, that worked for a while. I want to say that Sunshine has done an admirable job for the city and the county over the past 20 years in housing affordable, low-income people in affordable housing. And right now, because of the market, because of circumstances beyond the control, not just in this city, but in numerous communities across this country, we're all having the same problems with inner city properties. They're old, they're falling apart, and some of them are just not worth rehabbing anymore. We need to come up with a plan where we're going to fix that and turn it around. I will credit Sunshine with their efforts to try to turn this around, to try to make their payments and try to go back to the county and make sure that everything's made good.
Thank you. I think I'd like to give some history too on this project because it was when I was first elected to council and the project was happening in my ward to start, and I was very involved with the tax credit project and the Sunshine group. Very disappointed at some of the failures of it and happy about some of the successes. And I'd like to start with the tax credit houses in particular, because when that project was set up, it was a project that we were bringing low-income people into a brand new home, and we were making future homeowners out of them. We had a management group from Cleveland called Hallmark, because the plan called for anything that happened in that home, the Sunshine was responsible for repairing it. And so to avoid some of the costs, we would teach them how to be good homeowners, how to take care of a home, how to be part of a community. And so day to day, from day one, I spent a lot of time on the construction site. I spent a lot of time in the board meetings, and I can tell you that I and Mayor Angelo, who I have to continually thank, because he supported me. Whenever we found fault, I took it to him. And it got to the point, even during the construction, where things were going awry and we had to stop. One of the things that I continually went to the board about, and which led me to asking for the resignation of Tim Yoga, was because of their aggressive buying. They just wouldn't stop. They just kept buying, and the numbers showed that there wasn't a market for it. And the organization did not have the funding to pay for and support the project. And so when they were buying into the Sunshine House, Tony is correct, they went with massive debt. They really did. But it didn't have to be. And so here we are, just talking about Sunshine, the tax credit project right now. Here we are at the end of our 15 years. And during this time, during this whole period of the first few years of building this home, these homes, the city wanted a success, because contrary to what Tony and Michael just said about this is not city money, yes it is, folks, because that federal money that comes to us belongs to you guys to use as you see fit. And so the prior administrations, it was important to them that our investment in these projects would be a total success, because we were going to monitor on a monthly basis. And during that time of the Angelo administration, like I know he could tell you, They reported to the administration